Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Billy, and in this video I'm going to be doing a wrap-up of all the books I read in February. It's been a minute since I posted a video. Life has been life, and but I'm happy to be back and able to do this wrap-up. If you watched my February TBR video, you know the books I wanted to read this month, and for the most part I did stick to that, but this month I wanted to read books from Black authors, and I had like two not heavy books and two heavier topic books, and I was going to alternate them, and didn't do that. I read the two light books first, and so by the time I got to the heavy books, I read one of them and I was like, I'm done. I was not really wanting to get further into the fourth book. But I did end up reading two books I didn't expect to read. So I read a total of 5 books this month, and I'll just hop right in. So the first book I read was Better Than I Know Myself by Virginia Debary and Donna Grant. I absolutely love this. I love these authors. I love the way they write. Apparently my cat does too. Um, and they just have a way of talking about heavy topics, but the book doesn't feel heavy, and it's still an enjoyable experience to read it. So in this book, we follow the friendship of 3 girls who meet in college. They're from all different walks of life, and we follow their friendship over 2 decades. And at the beginning of the book, you find out that one of them dies, but you don't know who it is until the very end. And I mean the very end, like the last few pages. And I have to say I was shocked by who it ended up being. So of the 3 women, we have Regina. Regina is was a childhood actress, and she is going to college to get away from her momager and figure out what she wants to do. And we also have Regina. Regina comes from a well-off family, but she feels smothered, and she feels like she can't stand up to the expectations of her family. And then we also have Carmen. Carmen is from a low-income family. Her father died when she was young. Her mother left. It's just her and her brother. And her brother isn't the greatest influence. He doesn't have the greatest people around him. And she is just trying to make it so she can get out. So, like, you can see they're all very different, but they somehow connect, and they somehow connect and become friends, and you just see their life progression over time. This book has, it talks about topics like sexual assault, addiction, unexpected pregnancy. So it's like very heavy topics, but again, it doesn't read heavy. And I feel like if you're somebody who likes to read about friendship, sisterhood, then you would like this book. I very much enjoyed it. This is my second book I've read by them. The first was Far From the Tree, and I will say I did enjoy Far From the Tree more, but this was still, I thought, very, very good. So yeah, I was happy to open my month with this book. And after that, I read When Twilight Comes. I got this book used. I had never read a book from this author. This book is by Gwen Forrester, and I thought I would like this more than I did, but I did think it was okay. So the basic premise of the story is we have Sharon. Sharon takes over the family newspaper. It's a prominent African American newspaper. And when her mother becomes ill, and her mother is like, okay, well, you're the one who wants to take it over, so I'm going to give it to you. And so her 2 older siblings um, don't like this because they didn't want to do any work in the newspaper, but they did want to reap the benefits of it. And so it creates this like rift between Sharon and her siblings. And so that's the basic premise of the book. And I feel like it's supposed to be, the way it's described on the back, it's supposed to be like a coming of age for Sharon, like her finding her voice and standing up for herself. And while I feel she does that, I don't know, I feel like she's not like, it's not as much of a transformation for me that I expected to see, because she, to me, stands up for herself from the beginning. Like, she stands up for herself as the boss of the paper. She she cares about her siblings' feelings, but she's not, I wouldn't say like she's super timid. So I didn't really, I didn't like that the main character essentially that I thought the story was like centered around didn't have as much of a transformation as I expected to see. Also, like all of the three siblings, they all have like their own like romantic relationship things going on alongside them having the rift between each other. And I will say that I actually found the story, this like the side stories with her siblings, her older sister Cassie and her older brother Drogon. I found them more interesting than Sharon's story, with her, even with the paper and also her romantic relationship. And so I don't know, it just was not what I expected. This is the life of having cats. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but yeah, so I found like the side stories more interesting, and I don't know, it all tied up very well. It was okay. I would read more from this author, but I think just because I had, for whatever reason, high expectations for this book and it was just kind of okay. I don't know. I just, and I think I read it right after I read this and I really liked this. So it could also be that I feel like I read a book I really, really liked, and then I read a book that maybe if I had spaced them out, I would have liked it more than I did. But I still thought it was good. I do. I want to emphasize that I still enjoyed it, and I would read more from her. Yeah, so that was this book. And then after that, I read Native Son by Richard Wright. And this was the book that ended me sticking to my TBR because it was just, what are you doing? Because it was so heavy. It was a lot to take in. So in this book we have Bigger Thomas. Bigger Thomas is imprisoned for the murder and sexual assault of a white girl, and his defense attorney, and also I think the message that Richard Wright is making in this book, try to make the case that, Bigger Thomas is a product of his circumstance, and it's because of the conditions that have been placed on the Black community that, what would you expect? Like, why wouldn't you think he would turn out this way? It brings light to like the discrimination of how Black people are treated. My thing with this book was I didn't think that Bigger Thomas was the best character to carry that message. While I do think that there, is discrimination and it impacts how people can act, I just don't think Bigger Thomas is a likable character, and I feel like it muddles the message. But again, this book is it's set in 1930 Chicago. Richard Wright, born in the early 1900s. I think he was born in like 1908 or something like that. So, and also he's a Black male. So it's just a completely different time. It's a completely different, I guess, mindset from me as someone who, was born years later. And when more advances have been made. And so I just have a different perspective. Like, reading this was so hard because you're like, Bigger, like, don't do it. Don't do it. Like, you're just like, this is like bad decision after bad decision after bad decision. And like, you have, like, I just I try to remember like the circumstances under which he has grown up, but it's also like seeing how he treats, for me, I think it was seeing how he treated people in his community, in the Black community. Like at the beginning of the book, you even see how he treats his friends. Like, these are his friends, and this is how he treats them. And from the very beginning, we can see that Bigger does not process emotions very well. He doesn't process fear very well. And when he is afraid, it's like fight or flight. And often Bigger chooses to fight. And so we see that from the very beginning. And that's kind of how he ends up in the position he ends up in. I think it was just very hard to be sympathetic towards him. And I kept reading, not so much because I wanted him to be like vindicated, but I wanted to see if he discovered the reason for that emptiness inside of him, and whether he would come to that realization and not just be like angry and numb to it all, if that makes sense. But yeah, it was just really hard to read this. So the book is divided into like 3 different parts, or 3 different books. Book 1 is fear, book 2 is flight, and book 3 is fate. And so in the first book, we have him, we have the murder happen. In the second one, we have like Bigger on the run. And then the third one is like his trial. And then, so I don't feel like any of this is like spoiler, because I feel like on the back, you already know he's going to jail. You already know why he's going to jail. And so it's not, I don't feel like that's any spoiler, but it's just so hard to read that first book, because you're just like, he could have done so many things to like not be in that position. And then it just gets worse. It just gets worse in book 2. And then in book 3, it's kind of like this more of like, I feel like the realization or analysis of it all type part of the book. So yeah, don't take, I know this is a classic. Don't take away my black card. I don't know, this wasn't the book for me. But again, like I'm saying, like I'm not a black male. I'm not growing up in the same time, as Richard Wright. So I just like I know that you can always choose a different path, but that may not have been a realization in this time. And so yeah, I won't keep belaboring the point, but if you have read Native Son, I would love to hear your perspective and what you thought of it, and maybe you can enlighten me on some things. Maybe you can point something out to me. Maybe I'm missing something. I don't know. I didn't like his character, and so it made it hard to receive the message that I do agree with because of that. So after I read that, I was going to read James Baldwin, Just Above My Head, but it was just, I just couldn't. So I did get like 66 pages in. I really tried. I don't think TBRs are for me, because I felt a lot of pressure to keep reading, and I tried to push through and it didn't work. But this book is about a man who is grieving the death of his brother, and you're hearing about the experiences that his brother has gone through, and that's heavy. And then also, like, when you're grieving, when a person's grieving, like, they're not, like, their mind wanders, and like they might go off into their imagination or be remembering things from the past. And so you have all of this in this book, and it just was a lot of brain power. So this is the one I did not get to, but not because I think I will enjoy it once I'm ready to read it. But yeah, I just wasn't ready to receive this in February. So we're going to table it, but I definitely will. I do want to read this, and I will read this. So instead, I was like, let me read something not so heavy. And I read The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. I read this on my e-reader. It was a library checkout. And that is not a light book either. But I think in relation to just books about like the Black experience in America and racism, those books are harder as a Black person for me to digest. And so The Bell Jar, which is a book about like depression and like suicidal thoughts, and it's not something that comes as close to home, so it wasn't so hard for me to get into. Also, the tone of The Bell Jar is very casual, other than the subject matter. Like, I thought like, oh, this could have been written today, and I don't know why I was surprised by that. I thought it was gonna be different, but basically in this, it follows, I believe her name is Esther. I'm really bad with character names. I hope that's her name. I think her name is Esther. And she is, I believe it takes place in 1950s New York. And she is an aspiring writer. She's doing an internship at a magazine. And up until this point in her life, you see things have pretty much gone her way. And she wants to be a writer. But then, like, some obstacles get in the way, and it's 1950s, so women are expected to get married, have kids. And so when things don't go her way, people aren't like, oh, just keep at it, keep trying. They're just like, oh, we'll just you're gonna get married and have kids anyway, so it doesn't matter. And I think that it's like, when you see her mental state, it just slowly deteriorates over time in the book. And it's interesting because I feel like today people might say, well, she was just, you're just sad because this thing didn't go your way, but it can still go that way. But I think it's not even a thought in people's mind that women wouldn't just want to get married and have kids. And so um, you just see how that plays out. And I did enjoy it. I did enjoy the book. Shout out to Jaded Reads, because I picked it up because of her and a video she made, which she probably explains this in much greater detail and much better than me. But I did really enjoy the book, and I would love to read more from her. I think she unfortunately, I think Sylvia Plath actually ended her own life herself right before this was released, I believe, or when it was released. So I think some of the instances are pretty um, autobiographical in some ways. But I would love to read some of the things that she wrote before her novel. I think this is her only novel. I think before this she had written like poetry and maybe short stories. So yeah, that was the fourth book I read. And then the last book I read was also my e-reader, and I said, I'm gonna read something different. I'm gonna come outside of my comfort zone. I read Cursed Bunny by Bora Chung. This is a short story collection, and it is described as a mixture of horror, sci-fi, and speculative fiction. And my first impression from reading, just from the first story and throughout the book, was, what am I reading? Like, what is this? Like, the stories are just so out there. And I was just like, and I know some of the stories are supposed to be like metaphors for like humanity and society. And for some of them, I can see that. But for some, I'm just like, I'm not seeing it. I don't like, it's just weird. It's just so out there. It's just weird. Um, but I can say at the very least, I did find it entertaining. I wouldn't say this is like the genre for me, like a new favorite or anything, but I think like every once in a while, I could read it. Every once in a while. But just to give you an idea of what the stories were like, I think the first story was entitled The Head, and it's basically about a human being that is being born from the feces and waste of a woman over many, many years in her toilet. And so it's like, she sees this head and she tries to get rid of it throughout her life, and she can't. Like, and she tells her family about this, and they're just like, oh, it's harmless. Like, why are you worried about this? Like, and it's just totally normal. Like, there's a thing growing in the toilet, and it's any toilet. She moves houses, it's there. Work, it's there. Like, it doesn't matter. It just follows her. Wherever she uses the bathroom, it can find her. And so um this might be a little bit of a spoiler, so you can skip this part if you like. I'll leave the once I take the I'll put a picture of the book once I take it down. That means I'm done with the spoiler. But basically, once, like, the human, over many many years, her child has grown up, she's had a child, her child has grown up, it's now like a full body. Like, it's not just a head, it's a neck, it has legs, it has everything. It looks like a younger version of herself because now she's much older, and it comes out of the toilet, and it's like, oh, I'm just gonna ask you for one more thing. I just need the clothes that you're wearing. And she's like, I'll just get you some clothes. She's like, no, I need the clothes you're wearing right now. And then so she gives this creation that looks just like her when she was younger. She gives the creation her clothes, and then it basically is like, now I'm gonna take your identity, and now you're gonna go into the toilet. And it's just weird. It's just weird. I don't know. And I looked it up. I was like, what is the meaning of this? And it's supposed to be something about like not appreciating our youth. But I was like, I don't see it. It went over my head. I don't get it. Like, so that's just one of the stories. That's the end of that spoiler. But that's just one of the stories, and it's just so many odd things from there. Like, there's one story about a woman who becomes pregnant after taking birth control, like immaculate conception. There's a story about a man who finds a fox that bleeds gold and then takes it and uses it to become rich and successful. And then the fox like curses his family, and he has kids, and his kid, one of his kid, like, he has twins, and then like the twin likes to feed off of the one of the his sibling, his sister. It's just like so weird. So many weird stories. But again, I found it very entertaining. I found the writing to be very easy to get through. I thought it was well written. I just was like, what is the point of some of these stories? Like, but like I said, I give her imagination like top tier, A plus, A plus imagination. Um, Anywho, those are all the books I read in February. I hope this all made sense. If you can't tell, I'm filming this very late because, again, life. But I hope to be back and be up with a more regular upload of videos. Again, I'd love to know if you've read any of these books. We can chat about them. What did you read in February? And I will see you in my next video. Bye.